So I wanted to make this video where I'm basically talking about a few different things. One is like in defense of, I'm doing a more in defense of collecting physical books. And then also I'll talk about like ways to save on buying physical books and things that you can do, like if you feel like you have too many books, too many physical books. So this is in defense of collecting physical books, how to buy books for less, plus tips you can collect less. So number one is the reason why I collect physical books still is that you don't technically own your ebooks. I said any company that has these books on their platforms can decide at any time to remove that ebook from their library. I said, will they reimburse you for all of the money you spent on those ebooks? So I said, where with a physical book, you own that book forever as long as you never deal with a fire or a flood, because obviously nothing in life is guaranteed. So two is I saw someone comparing their makeup collection to owning physical books, and those are not the same thing. No, they're not. Not at all. So first off, you can donate your physical books, where in most cases, if you have already used that makeup, you can't donate that. It's spoiled. It's now spoiled because you put your body onto that makeup, you know? So you don't want to go and donate it and give your used dirty makeup to someone else, you know? Second, makeup expires where physical books don't. I said, now there are those exceptions, like you can have some deterioration over time with books. The pages can become yellowed. You can have your books get mold or mildew, insect damage, especially from silverfish, book lice, or bookworms, exposure to sunlight, lack of proper ventilation, fluctuating temperatures, broken spines, or pages that become detached from the spine. Now, those are just, environmental, basically, can happen to your books. But for the most part, you can have your books for many years before you start to see, like, deterioration or anything like that. There are ways that you can kind of prevent, like, bookworms, book lice, silverfish, things like that, from eating away at your books. There are different ways that you kind of like help prevent it and stuff like that. I saw some people buy used books and they'll put them in the freezer for like 24 hours and then bring them back out, and like, I guess it kills the bugs, whatever could be in there. That's an idea. You can go and put it in the freezer every time, so that might work. Otherwise, I'd say just keep your house always like climate controlled, to where it's not too hot in your home, and it's also not too cold. And keep your books away from direct sunlight, all that stuff. Keep them on a shelf. Usually they hold up pretty well. Where with makeup, like I said, makeup expires. Even if you don't use it, eventually it gets funky and you got to throw it away. So makeup is like, you can't compare the two. You really can't. I feel like owning a lot of makeup is, that is definitely more overconsumption. Because how much makeup are you actually going to use before that shit expires? Like, I used to constantly get those makeup subscriptions, and I got a ton of makeup. And it got to the point where I had like a big box of makeup that I wasn't using, that was new, that I haven't even touched it. And I went and I literally gave it away. Like, there was my husband's niece, so basically my niece-in-law, she likes makeup, so I gave her like a huge box of makeup, and she was like, oh my God, thank you. And so I gave it to her. I had her, either she could sell it or whatever, but I gave it to her because I'm like, I'm not going to use all this makeup. And I'm very much what I consider myself a makeup minimalist, where most times I don't even wear makeup, because I don't care to put it on. Some days I'm like, oh, let me dress up my face or practice, like, eyeshadow and all that stuff. But I got to the point where I'm not really into makeup anymore. Like, for a small time I was doing it. Most times I don't care. I've gotten to that point where I just don't give a shit anymore if I put makeup on. I'm not here to impress anybody. If you don't like me barefaced, then why should I wear makeup for you? You know, like I do it for myself, not for other people, you know? I'd maybe put like, get your face made up nice, like if you're gonna go to like the DMV and take a picture, because then you have a nice photo for your, you know, license or ID. So I'd say maybe you want to do that. But otherwise, it's like, no, I don't bother. And so my makeup has expired over time because I haven't been using it. Like I never have hit pan on any of my eyeshadow palettes, you know, I never hit pan. So to me, it's like, it's a waste. It's a waste of money. You're wasting money by picking all this stuff up. The most of what I use with any makeup is I'll use concealer to help like cover up any, you know, impurities and all that stuff. Or you use like the type where it's like a green complexion, where, you know, like for my tone, I use more of like a green complexion, and you kind of rub it in and it helps to eliminate the red in your skin. I'll use that. Sometimes I use lip gloss or lip tints and things like that. But most times I'm using like chapstick that I buy. Like one of my favorites is like a peppermint one. I use that one most of the time when it comes to like putting something on my lips. So I'm really cheap. Like I was picking up all this stuff and I had a ton of makeup that I just wasn't using. So I do consider it, I consider that to be overconsumption. And so I had to like, I had to get down my collection to where I don't own a lot of makeup anymore. And like I gave some to my daughters to play with, you know, that stuff. But as for books, it's so much easier to just donate them. You could donate them, you could sell them. You may not get the same amount of money for them that you bought them, but most of what I buy are used. And this goes into the second category, where it's how to buy books for less. A lot of books I buy either on eBay, you get good deals with like book collections and stuff like that. Pango Books is another one, or you could sell on Pango Books. Same thing with eBay, you could sell on eBay. Thrift books, same thing, you can either buy or sell there. Book Outlet is another good place. Like I bought like how many books from Book Outlet that were like $5, you know, for like a paperback. So I mean, they're pretty cheap. You know, I don't like paying like full price for my books most of the time. Goodwill's another place that you could check out for books. Thrift stores is another place. And yard sales. I mean, these are all places that you can go and buy books for less and save money. So you could accumulate a good physical book collection just by going through all those places, you know, and buying books for cheap, you know. So, you know, you could do that where you're not going and buying like used makeup, you know. That'd be gross, you know. I'm not, ugh. And maybe you would buy some used clothes if you wanted to, like if you needed to buy used clothes. Like at one time I would go to the Goodwill and buy myself some clothes. But you have to be careful with like shoes, and, you know, obviously you're not buying used underwear or used bras. That's not something that I would want to buy. Someone else was in it. No, thank you. Wear a shirt or pants. That's kind of a different thing. But, you know, you can own like too many clothes and now you got to pare it down, you know. Where with books, it's like you could find a place in your home to like have your collection, you know, and you could stack like multiple books on like one shelf, you know. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is what I do to collect and own less books. So one is I stopped watching book hauls. A lot of people tend to have FOMO, you know, fear of missing out. I said myself included. So I don't watch content creators' book hauls anymore. Like I don't watch any of that stuff anymore because, you know, you have that like, oh, I should probably get that book too kind of thing. Like you want to fit in with all these other people, what they're reading. So you want to go and buy the same books, and you end up buying like all these books that you're not even reading, you know? So for me, I just pretty much stopped all book hauls, you know, and there was one content creator I used to follow, and that's like what she was doing for a while was just a ton of book hauls. I just got to the point where I'm like, I can't watch her anymore because it was just too much. It was too many book hauls. And then you get these people who have these massive book hauls, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, do you really need that many books, you know, in your collection? I tend to do mini book hauls. Like maybe I'll show like a few books I got, and then that's it. I don't show like these, like, oh, I got 50 books, and it's like, so I mean, there are things that you could do to pick up books, but not picking up a massive amount of books, you know? So that's why I stopped following like book hauls. I don't watch that stuff anymore. So 2 is I only buy books you've already read through ebook format, or if you listen to it on audiobook. Like say if you borrowed it from Kindle Unlimited, you know, or you listen to it on audiobook. So once I read or listen to the audiobook, if I love the book and I physically want to own it, then I will purchase the physical copy. But before buying them, sometimes I let them sit on my wish list for a bit, and after a few months, if I still want to buy them, I'll purchase them. But I've had that with a few books where I let it sit on my shelf in my wish list on Amazon for a while, and then I'm like, do I still want to buy that book? And then if I don't remember it, like if it's something where it's been how many months, and I'm like, you know what, I don't remember that book, probably best not to pick that one up since I don't even remember it. I don't even remember it, you know? So those ones there, I'd be like, no, I'll just take them off my list. So I stopped myself from buying a whole ton of books because I'm now purchasing them after I read it. Like, so if I really like this book and I'm like, yeah, I definitely would reread this again, then I pick it up. So that way it stops me from buying a whole ton of books I haven't read and trying to get through those books. Like I still have a ton of books I haven't read. So right now for me, that's what I'm currently doing, is trying to like wean down like the copies that I currently have. And also like I'm trying to pick up less books and pick up more books that are books that I already read and I definitely want to reread again. And if you're not a rereader, then yeah, that'll stop you from picking the books up completely because you don't reread books, you know? So I said number 3 is I frequently unhaul books that are sitting on my shelf and I either lost interest in reading the book, if it's a book I haven't read yet, or if I reread the book and it doesn't hold that same feeling for me anymore that it did before. And that's essentially what it is. It's like you could go and have something that you bought, and then maybe like a few years later, you're like, let me reread this again. And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't hold the same feelings for me that it did before. So I could just take that off my shelf and just sell it or donate it. So I'm really trying to get my collection pared down to where the only thing I own is maybe like a small collection of books that I haven't read yet, and the majority of what I want to have on my shelves are books I already read. I still love them, and then I'll go into like rereading them when I want to reread them. But yeah, like I said, if you're not a person who rereads, then there's no sense in either keeping the book or purchasing it if you already read it. You know, like if you're not a rereader, then there's no point in it. You know. But if you're like me, like I like collecting books. That's what I like to do. That's a different hobby from reading it. I like collecting things, and books is one of the things I like to collect. So if I find something cheap, you know, like used cheap, I'll buy it, you know. And I'm like, okay, I'll check it out and read it. And if I didn't like it, it's not a big deal. I didn't pay a lot for it anyway, you know, since the majority of what I own are used books. So I still like to do that. And also there are books that, you know, I've bought that, you know, I physically, you know, it was like maybe like a paperback or whatever it is. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not really feeling this. I'll just go and sell it on Pango Books, and I sell it for maybe like $5 or $10, you know, and go from there. And I get some of my money back, you know. And that's the way I've been doing it lately, is like avoiding book hauls, sticking with just like trying to mainly purchase books that I've already read that I want to reread again. And then also like unhauling books from my collection where maybe I've had it on my shelf for like a few years and I'm like, man, I am never going to read this book. You know, I'd be like, it's sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. Meanwhile, it's collecting dust. I'm not reading it. And I'm like, you know, I could just get rid of this one and then have room for more books that I read and I want to buy the physical copies of. So that helps me with my collection. So that way I'm not doing way too many. Because I had a lot of books at one time, and I have been paring them down a lot, you know, been unhauling a lot of books for the past like year or so. I've been really trying to like weed down my collection to where it's mainly the books that I really want to get to and read rather than like other type of stuff. So that's basically what I've been doing lately. So like I said, I want to defend physical books because like I said, digital is not the way to go for me. You know, others too. You know, you want to go and own physical books. It's still good to own them. Ways that you can go and collect books for cheap, and what you can do to kind of keep your collection more controlled, you know, where you don't have it to where you like have a shit ton of books that you're not reading, you know, because then it takes up space of books that you actually want to read or books that you want to reread, and it's hard to put on the shelf when it's filled with other shit, you know. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I didn't want this to be like a super long video, but I wanted to go over like my reasonings of why I stick to physical copies, and then what I do to kind of help control my collection, so that way it doesn't like get out of control. Because I hate being like, I don't like hoarding. And they're like how many family members I have that are definitely like have hoarding tendencies, and so I don't want to be that type of person where I become that, you know, have those hoarding tendencies, and all I want to do is just, oh, I gotta save this because this, you know. No, like I can't save a book just for the cover. Like if I didn't like the book, I need to get rid of the book and not keep it just because, well, the cover's pretty, you know. So I have to stick with like very few that are part of my collection that I'd be like, oh, well, this here, this book here, if I keep it, you know, it may be worth something years down the line, you know. So there's a few books I keep because I'm like, that book there might be worth something in like another 20 or 30 years. So it's better probably just to hang on to it, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Are you a physical book reader? Do you like to go and physically collect books? How do you handle yourself when it comes to like, do you purchase a lot of new books, or do you stick to like a lot of used books? How do you handle your collection, you know, to keep it like under control, or is your collection pretty much like out of control and you have to fix it? I don't know. Let me know down below in the comment section. But yeah, that's it for this video here. Have yourselves a good day. Take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and I'll see you all on the next video. All right, bye.